welcome to the Investor Talk Show, where we uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets of South Africa's most inspiring property investors, real estate professionals, and entrepreneurs. And I'm your host, Neale Petersen. And today we're cutting through the fear and myths around evictions with a practical playbook for investors and landlords to prevent them and resolve them lawfully before they happen. So this is information that really you can use as an investor, and at a later stage, we will send you downloadable checklists and information that you can use. But first of all, before we get there, I'd like to invite you to meet our guest, who is Elize le Roux. She's the founder and CEO of Xpello, and she's a specialist in lawful eviction strategy and breach prevention. So Elize, maybe just welcome yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you, Neale, and thank you for the opportunity. Neale, I had the absolute pleasure of litigating in evictions for about 10 years. And then we realized there's a real need and a gap in the market. Agents can manage a matter only that far, and before it has to go legal, and all owners can't go legal. So that's where Xpello was created, to fill that gap and make the opportunity and the burden of evictions less.
Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about landlord errors. You know, the big mistakes they make. I mean, which landlord errors most often turn arrears into evictions? And what's the lawful fix under the CPA, the RHA, and PI? I mean, those are all the different acts. Maybe you can share that.
Neale, I think the first thing is proper record keeping. Do you know how many landlords don't do proper records? Statements going out incorrectly or not even at all. So that's the big mistake. Please make sure you use a proper system. If you don't know how to use a system, appoint somebody that can. Because if you're not sure how much they should pay you, how much the tenant know how much they should pay you. So I must say that is one of the biggest mistakes we see that's happening. The second one is maintenance. You as a landlord has the obligation. Don't give the tenant an excuse to not pay. So keep your site clean. It is an obligation in terms of the Rental Housing Act that you maintain the property. And I think that's also a matter that causes a big disputes.
Okay, that's an interesting one because, I mean, if there's one mistake that you wish landlords would never make again, would that be it?
Definitely. Just do the basic maintenance. You don't have to make it an hotel for somebody to stay in, but basic maintenance, a budget for it. People don't budget for maintenance. And the thing is, the worse the property, the worse the tenant becomes. So keep to your basic, do what you need to do, keep your tenant happy. If you keep your tenant happy, they are going to look after you. Okay,
so let's talk about acting early, limiting damage, because, and you've got lots of experience in this. I mean, what's the earliest lawful moment to act after non-payment? And how does week one action change timelines and damages?
So, Neale, if the rent was due and payable, it must reflect in your account on the 1st. On the 2nd, you can actually start with your process. If the tenant, because they are in breach, legally you can start the process there. I would suggest please start with a reminder. Send a message, follow up to say, because sometimes people did make the payment. Maybe they didn't do a same day reflect, or they just paid it late, but it's just not reflecting on your side. So you don't want to damage the relationship. But, I see people taking time, and ideally it should not take later than a week. Because especially if you're looking at later on in the year, waiting 1 week can cause an eviction only to be granted a month later. So it is of utmost importance to at least start the communication on day 2 and then send the formal notices not later than day 7.
When do you think is a payment plan appropriate? Because, normally, people hit a financial sort of, brick wall and something has happened, they've run out of cash that month. So when is it actually appropriate? Because, you obviously get lots of these kind of stories where people, don't worry, we'll sort it out.
Neale, you know what? If it's a first-time breach and it's a unique situation, because life happens, and you don't want to, per se, lose a good tenant. So I think the first thing you have to say is, what's the reason for the default? Because you don't want to encourage continuous defaults. The secondly is, can they afford to keep to the plan? I see so many tenants go, okay, I'll pay the full rent at the end of the month. Now, if you can't pay 1 month, how are you going to pay double month? So affordability is the reason, or how they suggest to pay that amount of money. Can they actually keep to it? And ask for supporting documents. I think people are sometimes too shy. If they say, listen, I'm going to pay this at the end of the month, I'm getting this money. Well, give me proof. The proof is in the pudding. The pudding is in the proof. So I think that is super important.
Nicely put. So let's talk a little bit about attorney network and control. I mean, how do you select, brief, and manage panel eviction specialists nationally? I mean, what service level agreements and cost controls protect owners?
Neale, as a litigant for over 20 years, it was amazing to see how important this role is. And so to just do proper vetting on your attorneys. I say the public, usually they find an attorney on the basis of affordability. And sometimes just the first person that picks up, they don't look at speciality. So we actually have an interview. Armand and myself, we go and we make sure, can these people actually do evictions? And we ask them questions to make sure that they're not just doing the sales pitch. The second thing is capacity. We regulate capacity of all of our attorneys on our panel because, people go, they market, they get a lot of work and then they can't cope. So those are the things that we really go and make sure that, do they have capacity? What is their growth plans? Do they have the experience? And also feedback. Do they take their client services off? Is that important? Because some people are fantastic attorneys, but they're bad with the client services. So what is the need of the client and what is going to be the best performing for us?
Excellent. So let's talk about process, not panic, which we don't want panic. Let's lay out the 4 legal steps, how it works, starting from probably letter of demand, cancellation, court application, sheriff if they don't pay, and where do landlords commonly go wrong in this process?
So the first 2 parts that the landlord or the owner really has control if they're managing their own property is the notices, letter of demand. That is so important that it's done properly and clearly. So it has to be clear. I see people trying to be fancy, saying you've breached the lease agreement. But you need to say, how did you breach it and how you have to remedy it? So that's the first thing is, and maybe be too emotional in the letters. That's not the time to threaten or play on anybody's feelings. The second thing that we see the biggest mistakes, and it's so important to get it done, is to cancel on the right date. People prematurely cancel. And if you cancel it, they're not ready to proceed with the legal action, and that can prejudice them. So those 2, the first one, if you're an owner, you don't have an agent. Most agencies has got systems. Their letter of demands are done properly. Use that agent that manages your property. Cancellation, I almost want to say that's when you have to get an attorney involved if you don't have Xpello. For Xpello, for example, we are very strict. If it's our matters, we cancel. Nobody else is allowed to cancel because we need to do it at the right time. Timing is everything.
Okay, so let's talk about what are the things that are absolutely illegal when you're frustrated. And what I mean is, in some cases, we get landlords taking things into their own hands, removing the front door, switching off the electricity. Are those some that you could I'm sure you got some more.
Yes. So, Neale, I almost want to say it's so important. Don't stop biometric access. This is the new thing. If you block a tenant to go into the property, that is spoliation. It's a legal term. It means you are taking the law into your own hands and trying to do an illegal eviction. So, and everything you do, it will be used against you, Neale. That's what they have to remember because they are going to mention this in courts. So don't listen to quick advice. Don't try and shortcut. Speak to people that has done it often, that has done it correctly. And I know the process is tedious, but prepare yourself because there's nothing worse. And I've seen this, Neale. They try something illegal. Then there's court applications, and then the tenant is more arrogant because now he's won his spoliation application. You have to give them access, and then it's even more difficult to get rid of them.
Okay, so let's talk about timelines and budgets and the top 3 delay killers. Setting sort of realistic expectations in that process. Whether it's unopposed and versus opposed, and lawful ways to shorten the clock. Can you maybe share?
Okay, so the first thing is an unopposed eviction. That means that the tenant is not fighting the process. Okay, he didn't file any papers, and an eviction is a 3-phase process. It's a unique court application. Normally you issue your papers and you go to court, but the eviction application has got a middle application in, and that automatically makes it longer. So a quick application, if everything runs smoothly, courts are quick, everything perfect, you're looking at about 12 weeks, 3 months to get your court order. And that's also if you served your documents by urgent service. If you're not with Xpello, we only pay for urgent service because the sheriff takes their time and you don't want to waste time, but it's expensive. So that's definitely a way to make it quicker than normal. And then, of course, the time that they grant you issue it. Then you have an instance where tenants oppose the application. This is important, Neale. Doesn't mean they have a defense or they're going to be successful. We see much more ChatGPT, people helping with just filing a notice of intention to oppose because they want to prolong the process. Your costing, for unopposed, you're looking anything between 15,000 and 40,000. Depends on the province, depends on the court, depends on the sheriff's cost all in. Opposed applications, now there's much more involved. You're talking about opposing papers and those type of things. Average, you're looking about 3 months to 8 months to get your court order. And of course, depending on the papers that has to be filed, the heads of arguments and the court, it can easily go up to 80,000, if not more.
Wow. So in finality then, Elize, maybe just leave some final thoughts to a landlord, to managing tenants and also to agents, that are doing that. Maybe you want to leave them just with some final takeaways.
Neale, I have to say that one thing that we've learned is when you're tenant breach, it's an emotional process. The unfairness in all of this. Speak to us, let a professional handle it. Let's take control of all of the emotions. Let's push. We know all the shortcuts, legal shortcuts. We know everything that we can, and it's within people's budget. So rather take that approach instead of taking the approach that it's never going to happen to me. Plan, be ready, and know you have a team that can deal with it on your behalf.
Fantastic. Great chatting to you, Elize. So I'll just add to some of the key takeaways. Act early, stay lawful, and treat documentation like your insurance policy. I mean, most breaches are solvable without eviction, even if you do follow the process. We will at some stage share you some downloads on that. There is a link that we're going to drop. If you want to get in touch with Xpello, I would suggest do that if you want to avoid that situation. But a big thanks to Elize le Roux. She's the founder and she's the CEO of Xpello. And I'm Neale Petersen. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next Investor Talk.